What's up, my fellow Harmonic traders? Welcome back to Track the Harmonic, your go-to destination for all things Harmonic technical analysis. I'm your host, Lord MC. In today's video, we'll dive deep into Harmonic technical analysis as well as what to expect as we approach a shortened Thanksgiving week. First up, we do have the FOMC minutes, which will be released on Tuesday, and these are just detailed records of the Federal Reserve meetings released 3 weeks later. So think of it as a behind-the-scenes look at the discussions around economic conditions and the reasoning behind the interest rate decisions. Next up, we do have the durable good orders, which will be released on Wednesday, and this is just a crucial economic indicator reflecting orders for long-lasting goods. It's a key measure of manufacturing health and consumer confidence, which could offer insights into economic growth. And last but not least, the most anticipated earnings of the week, and that will be going to NVIDIA. So NVIDIA does report earnings this week, and it's going to be very important to see how they report, as they could definitely shake the semiconductor space and the Magnificent Seven. So if they report bad earnings, you could definitely see a downturn here in the markets. But if they report good earnings and they beat like they did last quarter, you can see continuation to the upside into the market. So if you're serious about staying ahead of the game, make sure you hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video from me. So having said that, I do also want to mention that I am not a financial advisor. None of the things I say in my video is ever financial advice. So question everything, do your own research, and come out with your own conclusion. So having said that, let's jump right into the charts. So jumping over to SPY here. So the SPY seems to be having a bit of a resistance level here around 450 to 451. As I bring on my drawings here, I do have a target there at 451.17 from a previous harmonic pattern, where on Wednesday you did manage to go above it but close below at the end of the day, and on Friday you had a similar reaction there again, where you tried to go above that 451.17 but weren't able to close above it. So what can we expect here harmonically for the SPY? So the next level to the upside, if it continues to push higher here, would be 453.67, as the RSI is still not overbought. It's still underneath 70, and the HSI is looking like it wants to go to these overbought conditions but can push higher here like it did back in November the 8th. So if that is going to be the case and you see more upside, you definitely want to break above 451.17, then go to fill that gap around 455 and change, and then there's BC off the dragon pattern here at 456.43. If this is actually going to be a reversal zone here, you definitely want to see a reversal candle here to potentially signify that it is going to be coming here for a downwards movement. And if it is, you could definitely see a test 443.75, fill the gap there around 451 and change, and then test target to our 440.26. So if we jump over to the weekly here, the weekly did increase slightly from last week's volume. So if there is more continuation, like I said, you'd be looking at the same targets as well. So definitely keep an eye out on SPY. I do think the volume is going to be low again because we are going to be closed for Thanksgiving, and Friday is a short day. So definitely keep an eye out on the SPY. Jumping over to the triple Qs here. So the triple Qs has a very similar setup to the SPY. I do have a target at 386.41, where it did meet resistance here on Wednesday and Friday, where you managed to close below it. So what can we expect here harmonically? The RSI is still not overbought, and the HSI still looks like it wants to continue pushing higher, as well as the AMP RSI. So if it continues higher, the next level I'd be looking at would be 397.03, and then the previous all-time highs there at 408.71. I do want to show this target here at 386.41 as a level of importance, because the last time we broke out of this was back in 2021, where we created new all-time highs there around 401.400, came back down for a retest, and then we created higher highs, and we went and tested the 408.71 range, which was a previous all-time high. And as you could tell, we had some chop support here. We chopped for a little bit, and then we came down below that target, and we come down. So in the most recent time period, the last time we had a clear shot at 386.41 was back here in July, where you met resistance twice and you came below it, had some chop, found support between 386 and 377, and then you tried to reclaim 377 for an attempt again at 386.41 but failed. So right now we did break above 377 and we're at 386.41. So if there is more continuation to the upside, you have those, that maybe that target there at 397, then 400, 401 like it did back in 2021. If we jump over to the weekly here, we do have an outbat pattern where you have that bull flag that is potentially playing out here, and the target there for continuation for the type 2 return to hop is at 403.57, and like I said, that previous all-time high there at 408.71, and then you have OPR calling for a new all-time high at 424.59. So definitely keep an eye out on the Qs, as the weekly HSI still has some room to the upside before it reaches these overbought conditions. So if it decides to go there, we could definitely see new all-time highs for the triple Q. So definitely keep an eye out on the triple Qs. Jumping over to the Dow Jones here. So the Dow Jones did generate an HSI arrow off of Friday's close. The only thing I'm paying attention is to the low volume it generated, because if this was going to be a potential hanging man here, you definitely wanted to see with high volume to signify that there's strength into this potential reversal. So I would need probably a few days for confirmation to see if there's going to be volume picking up to the downside, and if there is, the next level I'd be looking at would be target 2 there at 345.97, where the 90 EMA is at. The gap fill there around 344 and change, and then you have a harmonic target at 343.09 from a previous harmonic pattern, where if you lose that level, I'd be looking at 339.34, and the gap fill right around where the 200 EMA is at, around 338. Below that, then you obviously have the other gap here on 333, and then XA 329, and then hop at 321. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen, if it does happen. Otherwise, the next level to the upside would be 357.74. And the reason why I say 357.74, because if we go back to the previous all-time highs here, the last time we were trading in this range was on October 21, where you did manage to break above that level and you created an all-time high, came below, and then you had another higher high where the all-time high is at 369.50. So we haven't really tested that level there since this 357 range since August 23, where it got really close. So if it does manage to find some support here, the next level I'd be looking at would be that level first around 356, and then you have that 357.74 above that. Then you have a gap fill around 360, and then you could get an attempt at the all-time highs. Off the weekly is increasing volume here, so there is no harmonic target here, no harmonic pattern, just this resistance level, this major one at 357.74. So definitely keep an eye out on the Dow Jones. Jumping over to IWM here. So IWM had a very bullish week, with the most bullish day being on Wednesday, where it went as high as 5.5%. And then on Thursday, it continued pushing higher, where it did test above 181.61 here. It did go on as high as 181.76, but were met resistance just slightly above the 200 SMA. On Thursday, you did manage to close below target 1, but Friday, you managed to close back again above target 1. So what can we expect here for IWM to the upside? If there is more continuation, you definitely want to break above that 181 and then complete the type 1 reaction at target 2 at 185.72. Above that, if you manage to hold support, then the next level I'd be looking at would be the 190, 192, and then you could see at 198 and 203. So to the upside here off the weekly, you could definitely see that it's finding some resistance here at the 200 EMA, but if you manage to break that, then the next level I'd be looking at would be 200 SMA at 186 and then 193. Then you have, it looks like it'd be a triple top, where it does have a bit of resistance around that 198, 200 psychological level. To the downside, if you manage to find resistance here around 177.67, the next level I'd be looking at would be to test the 50 EMA there, where the entrance of the gap is around 174 and change. Below that, you do have the gap fill around 169.77, right close to XA at 168.49. Losing that would obviously be bearish, and you could come back down for a lower low at hop at 160.42, where below that you do have a gap fill at 156. But right now, the volume that it got on the weekly is very high, so there may be some continuation to the upside potentially, so definitely keep an eye out on IWM. Jumping over to XLF here. So the financial sector has been getting some nice volume here, and you actually completed the type 1 reaction all the way to target 2 for that scalper's dream, way above it. So right now, the HSI, the AMP RSI, and the RSI are a bit overextended here. So what can we expect here to the upside for XLF? So if I take my favorite retracement tool from A to D here, the next level I'd be looking at, because you are at above the 786, is the 886 there around 35.21. Above that, then you have the 100% retracement of the pattern at 35.71, and then you get very bullish there above that level at 38.69. To the downside, if you do have some resistance around this level here, you could potentially come back down for a type 2 return to test target 2 at 34.05, where you do have a gap fill there. So we jump over to the weekly here real quick. The weekly does have a bat pattern where you did reclaim target 1 at 34.54, and then you do have a target 2 there at 37.27 down the line. This is obviously on the weekly. It could take a bit of time to get there, but the HSI did cross the midline, so it looks like there is some continuation here on the banking sector. So to the downside, obviously, if you are met with resistance, you can come back down to test 34.54, maybe test the 90 EMA here on 33.70, where you do have some bit of support here because all the EMAs are crossing together here. You do have a potential for a 921. So 921 by definition here, when that crosses over, it tends to be bullish on the strategy for that specific crossover. So like I said, that could potentially push it above 37.27. Otherwise, you can come back down maybe to test a 200 EMA around 32 to see if there is support there. So definitely keep an eye out on the financial sector. Jumping over to XLE here, so the energy sector did manage to test its target here at 82.51, where it was a bit bearish, and then on Friday you did push up to try to attempt to close above the 200 EMA, but were met with resistance. So what can we expect here off of the Gartley pattern? If it doesn't manage to find some support here and reclaim the 200 EMA, the next level would be looking again at is 82.51, and then target 2 at 81.77. If we go over to the weekly here, you do have a crab pattern where you are potentially setting up for a 921 crossover to the downside. So if it doesn't manage to hold this 83.92 level, I'd be looking at 82.51. Lose that level, you can see it's anywhere from 75 to 76. There is a gap fill there around $73 and change, and then the 200 EMA around 71, 72 and change. If you lose that level, obviously, I do think you would come back down to complete the type 1 reaction at target 1 at 67.27. To the upside, if you're able to close above the 200 EMA, the next target I'd be looking at would be 85.73, and then 86, 88, and then XA at 90. So definitely keep an eye out on XLE because it's a bit bearish right now. It looks like right now you just may be creating lower lows and lower highs, so you could be coming down here potentially. So definitely keep a close eye on the energy sector. Jumping over to Apple here. So Apple did generate a hanging man on Friday's close. So what can we expect here if this is going to signify that a potential downturn is incoming? You definitely want to see volume come through to the downside to pick up, so you can see that that is actually some strength in that reversal candle. Otherwise, you could potentially invalidate that and continue pushing higher. So targets to the downside, I'd be looking at if this is going to come play out as a hanging man with the downturn incoming. I definitely want to see a test 188.73, lose that level, fill that gap there around 186 where you have the 90 EMA. Below, I do have a target at 182.94 where if you lose that, you can get very interesting here for Apple. You can come back down to test the 200 EMA at 173. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of things for that to even play out, because right now I do think that the market is pretty strong, and you might see this being validated if there is volume come back up on Monday to Tuesday with higher volume. You could potentially see here the gap fill being closed around 191 and change. There is a slight gap there on 195 and change. Target 2 is at 195.81, and then the all-time high is at 198.93. The dragon pattern here is calling for a new all-time high at 205.38. If we jump over to the weekly, you do have this bull flag where you could potentially be, looks like you are breaking out of it right now, and you could potentially see those all-time highs again should you have more push to the upside and volume coming in, because the HSI did cross the midline and it looks like it wants to maybe reach those overbought conditions. So definitely keep an eye out on Apple into this week, especially with earnings and the whole Microsoft drama. So maybe some of these chips get affected by that, so definitely keep an eye. Jumping over to Microsoft here. So Microsoft does have a shark pattern on the daily. So what can we expect here off of Friday's close? So Friday you did generate this hanging man, and obviously there is news with OpenAI. There's a lot of drama going on with AI right now. So if by definition this is a hanging man, you continue seeing further downside because the volume did come in to the downside. You did manage to close below the HSI, and you did have a bearish divergence which could potentially be starting to play out. The next level I'd be looking at would be the test there at 366.42 off the 90 EMA. Then you do have the terminal bar there at 362.46, and then OB at 360.24. Losing that level there, you could come back down to the 21 EMA at 355, and then test a key harmonic target at 349.67, call it 350. Below that, then you would complete and start the reaction, complete a type 1 reaction to target 1 at 339.78, just slightly below the 50 EMA. So we'll definitely keep an eye on Microsoft here, because if it is starting to do a type 1 reaction, that could potentially signify that the market is coming here for probably a correction. So if we jump over to the weekly is on an inverted hammer candle here with HOP, where it did slightly still holding above hop here at 368.74. The HSI, the AMP RSI, and the RSI completely overextended to the upside. So you could just, come back down, retrace a little bit, and then continue pushing higher if the market is still going to continue. So Microsoft did also create new all-time highs, and I do have a target there at 386.73 from the previous all-time highs to the swing 52-week lows. The 127% retracement would call a new all-time high above 386.73. So definitely keep an eye out on Microsoft if there's more drama to unfold with the whole OpenAI situation and their CEO. So definitely keep an eye on Microsoft. Jumping over to Amazon here. So Amazon currently has a bearish shark pattern here on the daily at the completion of point C. It looked like it was going to reverse here, but managed to hold above OB here, where Friday you close at 145.18. So right now Amazon does have continuation with volume to the upside here with average volume. So if it is going to continue and not come reverse yet, the next level to the upside, because you still got room, is calling for terminal bar at 147.26 and then hop at 149.71. Should you find some resistance here around that terminal bar here where point C was generated, you can come back down to OB at 142.72, come back down here maybe to test target 1 there at 132.82 to complete that type 1 reaction. Right now it looks like there is some strength in Amazon's push up before it actually reverses. If we go to the weekly here, the weekly is now 2 weeks in a row above the 200 SMA with this bat pattern here calling for hop at 155.75, and the HSI clearly above the midline. It could continue pushing higher here because of the volume is on increasing volume. So definitely keep an eye out on Amazon. Jumping over to Tesla here. So Tesla did manage to close out Friday at 234.30, reclaiming the 50 EMA. So what can we expect here, harmonically speaking, for Tesla? To the upside, it is having some resistance here, just slightly around the 50 SMA here around 240. So there is a potential cup and handle here forming, where if this plays out, you could definitely see this come back up to test 258.89, call it 260. If there is some resistance here, the next level I'd be looking at to the downside here to fill the gap. It did start to fill the gap on Friday, but did not close it all the way. Here there is that gap fill at around 225.40. If we jump over to the weekly, you do have this bat pattern here where you did reclaim the 21 EMA here with an HSI dot on increase in volume. So if this is going to continue to the upside here, you definitely want it to break above 258.89, more specifically around 258.89, because right now it looks like on this formation it looks like it's just creating lower lows and lower highs. So if you want to break that trend here and shift momentum to the upside, shift momentum on the MACD to the green side here, you definitely want to break above that 258-260 range. You can see it come gap fill there around 287, where XA is at 289, and then you have hop there down the line at 343.69. So definitely keep an eye out on Tesla. Jumping over to Google here. So Google had an increase in volume to the downside here on Friday, where it generated an HSI arrow as well as a hanging man on that uptrend. So what can we expect here harmonically on Google? If this is going to be a reversal candle, implying that there's a potential reversal to the downside, the next level I'd be looking at would be 134.28, the gap fill around 132 and change, and then PT2 at 131.26, slightly below the 50 EMA. Should you lose that, you would also invalidate the potential cup and handle that it's forming here, and you come back down to 125.35 and maybe down the line at 124 to 123 and change to test the 200 EMA on the daily. If it manages to invalidate this potential hanging man and this HSI arrow to the downside, the next level I'd be looking at would be to reclaim 137.50 and then 139.16, and then maybe for a double top there at the high around 141. Above that, then you have targets that are at 143.41 to complete the type 2 return to hop. On the weekly, if we jump over here real quick, you do have a bearish bat pattern where you did come back down to test a 50 and now slowly climbing back up for what looks like 3 white soldiers on the weekly with increase in volume. So you do have a bit of resistance there at 136.90 off of XA here. As you could tell, the last few times you waked up above there, you find it to close below XA there. So if you reclaim 36.90 XA and continue pushing higher, you do have a new hop target there at 152.32 on the weekly chart. So definitely keep an eye out on Google if there is more continuation to the upside. Jumping over to Meta here. So Meta did generate an HSI arrow to the downside here, what looks like to be on increasing volume on Thursday, and then on Friday it actually created a higher high here where it closed at 33.35 off of decreasing volume. So it's a little bit confusing here what Microsoft wants to do here, if it is going to reverse or not. the HSI is coming back down here, but it looks like it's still continuing to push up here. You might be having a potential bearish divergences here on different time frames. If you look at here the 3-day does have a hanging man on the uptrend. So if you take a trend line here from the RSI, maybe you could take it from here to here. This level would be coming up from here to here. That is a bearish divergence on the 3-day. So if this is going to be implying that a potential reversal is coming to the downside to correct that RSI divergence, that bearish divergence, you might be able to come back down here to test 321.04 off the 9 EMA. Off of the weekly, you do have a, I guess you could consider that an inverted hammer candle on increasing volume. So it did cross the HSI midline to the upside. The RSI here on the weekly approaching 70, but still got room to the upside. Right here, if I look at Meta here for this target off of this crab pattern on the daily, the next target, should you reclaim 338.25, would be 359.78, then 100% retracement of the pattern at 384 for Meta. So definitely in a gray zone here, in my opinion, for Meta. Is a little too risky for me personally, but we'll see if there is more continuation to the upside on Meta. Jumping over to NVDA here. So NVIDIA does have a target here at 493.76, where it's finding some resistance here 4 days in a row. You try to break above it, but managed to close below. Thursday, you did generate an HSI arrow to the downside, and then on Friday, you slightly closed just below Thursday's close. Thursday's close was at 494.80, and on Friday, it was at 492.98. So that could be a potential indecision candle there, as we are anticipating earnings. You might have some chop up until Tuesday, because that's where they report earnings. So what can we expect here? If they report good earnings, obviously this could be a 50-50 thing. We don't know what's going to happen. You could potentially see to the upside if it's good earnings to test all-time highs at 502.66 and continue pushing higher. If bad earnings is on the table here, maybe that HSI arrow starts to play out, and the next level I'd be looking at would be 481, and then target 2 at 451.17. If we go over to the weekly here real quick, there is no harmonic pattern here, but the volume did decrease slightly. So the HSI is calling for more upside here. We'll see if there is going to be more upside. Like I said, if there is, you might see new all-time highs here on NVIDIA. What's different here between the daily and the weekly, because the daily is coming after reach these overbought conditions. This is why it generated an HSI arrow. It looks like it may be heading down to that midline. That midline could be anywhere between what looks like 451 and the 21 EMA. And if it decides to lose that level, then you could definitely see it come maybe to lose target 2 below at 451.77, right where the 50 SMA is at around 444. You do have a gap fill below that, but obviously it's going to be all dependent on how they report earnings. So definitely keep an eye out on NVIDIA. Jumping over to Netflix here. So Netflix, very bullish. Obviously, the RSI is completely overbought. You do have this bullish bat pattern where at the completion of point D, you finish that scalper's dream to complete that type 1 reaction way above target 2, where Friday you close at 465.91 on that indecision candle, reversal candle, whatever you want to call it. It may look like a hanging man here, but it is on decreasing volume. So what can we expect if there is more upside here for Netflix? Because you did invalidate that bearish divergence that was forming. The next level I would be looking at from this harmonic pattern would be, if I take a fair retracement from A to D here, the next level at the 886 of the pattern would be at 469.01, and then the 100% retracement at 485. Above that, then you have the gap fill around 507, 508. So if we go over to the weekly here, the weekly does look like a bull flag as well, and the weekly did cross the HSI midline, and it is approaching these overbought conditions within the HSI, and that could be maybe around that gap fill, maybe at best for a bullish case scenario, target 2 at 518.57. The AMP RSI is a bit reaching these overbought conditions as well, but from this strength, most looks like these 3 white soldiers here could be more continuation to the upside here for Netflix. So definitely keep an eye out on Netflix. Jumping over to Bitcoin here. So Bitcoin currently is at 37.2K here. What can we expect here moving forward for Bitcoin as it continues? Anytime it comes back down on increasing volume, it tends to find some volume to bring it back up, and then lower volume on the push down again. So right now, it's not clearly giving me an indication where it's going to go. Right now, it's a little bit overextended on the macro time frames. You do have a bearish crab pattern on the 2-day here, where you're obviously above hop, with decreasing volume, what looks like, right? So anytime, like I said, you have this push up here, it is on increasing volume, and the volume to the downside when it comes down for a retracement is on lower volume. So it looks kind of bullish right now to the upside. If we go to the weekly, you continue to make higher highs here. So if I see more continuation on Bitcoin, the next level I'd be looking at would be 42K. If we go back to the 3-day here, actually it's a 2-day, there is a target that I'm looking at around 42K if it decides to break around that 38K off the daily double top here. 38K, you can see 40 and then 42 to the downside. If you do come back and get met with some resistance, I'd be looking close attention to that crab pattern here for a type 1 reaction down the line, if that is the case, if there is volume. But right now, looks like any attempts to the downside on Bitcoin has been on lower volume. So definitely keep an eye out on Bitcoin. So that's basically it for me, guys. That's all I wanted to share. I will be streaming on Monday from market open to market close. I know this week is a short week because we have Thursday, Thanksgiving, so the market will be closed on that day, and Friday the market closes early, so I may not be streaming that day, but I will be streaming the rest of the week from Monday to Wednesday, same time as always. So if you want to catch me there, I do stream live on Twitch, so link to my Twitch is in the description box below. So having said that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everybody, and peace.